Our next storyteller is a lifelong Chicagoan, and in his working career, he has worked as a construction worker, a miner, a grade school teacher, and an adjunct professor of law. His longest stint was for 46 years at the Cook County Juvenile Court, where he was a probation officer, an attorney representing neglected, abandoned, and abused children, and a hearing officer. He's a hell of a guy, and please welcome Stan Mondala to the microphone.
It's in the wintertime, when the days are short and frequently dreary and the nights long, too long, that I start to look back on my life and reminisce. And so it was, just this past winter, that I was thinking of the raising of our two children, Tom and Ariel. They're adults for a long time now, ages 48 and 43. But my reverie went back to the raising of our daughter. Speaking as a father, having a daughter can frequently leave one scratching your head and wondering, what is going on here? Ariel was what I could only describe from an early age as a force of nature. She was quite entrepreneurial and imaginative. I can remember that it was around age 7, her famous Jamaican lemonade stand, where she sold a very tasty, made from scratch lemonade that was made with brown sugar and a dash of Angostura bitters, along with a side of corn muffins. One winter, when she was around 8, she printed up a flyer and went up and down the block. She introduced herself as the Snow Angel and offered to shovel for $2 a snowstorm the front sidewalk, the front stairs, and the path from the sidewalk to the curb. Then there was the famous annual fundraising school candy sale. Our son Tom was the beneficiary of a family effort, which included his grandmother, aunt, uncle, in selling the most candy. Tom was the top seller, and he won the contest. The prize for selling the most candy was a 10-pound Hershey's chocolate bar. It came in its own box, wrapped in gold foil. Made me think of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's gold ticket. It was immense, easily 2 feet long by 1 foot by 3 inches. The next year, it was decided that our efforts would be for Ariel. While there was the usual family support, Ariel, who was always competitive with her brother, went into the neighborhood, door to door, and in fact doubled the previous year's sales figure. The powers that be at the school decided that they could not let one family monopolize the prize. There would be no two-peat. Instead, it was decided that the names of the top sellers from each grade would be placed into a hat, and the winner of the chocolate bar would be drawn from the hat. Ariel was quite upset because she clearly was the top seller. But still, she hoped that regardless, her name would be drawn. Let me put a plug in here for the power of positive thinking. When the drawing took place, you guessed it, her name was drawn and she won that immense chocolate bar. And so it was in the winter when Ariel was 10 years old that she came to me and asked, "Dad, I want to go sledding this Saturday with Jackie." Jackie was her best friend starting from their preschool days. Now, I want to be a helpful and accommodating parent, so I said, sure. I figured we could go down to Cricket Hill, which, for those of you who don't know, is a grassy mound of dirt where Montrose Avenue ends and becomes the park further east to the beach. It's no more than 50 feet taller than the surrounding land. Immediately, Ariel, ever the organizer, began making plans for this event. She said she wanted to bring her sled and her sliding saucer. She wanted submarine sandwiches from Fontano's. And she wanted me to make her hot chocolate with cinnamon, a reference to one of her American Doll stories. She showed me the snowsuit she planned to wear, the mittens and her knit cap. There was only one problem, one fly, as it were, in the ointment. There was no snow. The winter had been very much like this one, colder for sure, but no snow. I'm not sure if it was El Nino or La Nina, but whatever, there was no snow. Rather than dash her dream, I decided to keep my own counsel. I did not sleep well the night before, wondering what would I do come Saturday morning. You can imagine my surprise, for Saturday dawned with Chicago in the midst of a full-fledged blizzard. Some freak polar vortex had already deposited 10 inches of snow, and it was still coming down. Earlier that morning, I made 2 thermoses of the special hot chocolate with cinnamon. And so, with snow still falling down, we loaded up the car, cleaned it off, and went to pick up Ariel's friend Jackie. We drove all the way down from here on the north side to Fontano's on Polk and Carpenter in Little Italy. While Ariel was waxing poetic about the tastiness of the Fontano Special Sub, a blend of imported capicola, provolone, and prosciutto, topped with lettuce and tomato and mild jardiniere, it was then that Jackie announced she does not like submarine sandwiches. She only likes bologna sandwiches. I negotiated a compromise. Across the street was a hot dog and hamburger stand. I got Jackie a hot dog with fries. She wanted the dog with ketchup, but I asked for it plain, and for ketchup packets on the side, as I wanted to get out of the restaurant alive. It was one of those places. Snow was still falling, but the trip up Lakeshore Drive was pretty quick. I don't know if you have ever noticed, but Chicago during and at least immediately after a snowstorm is really quite beautiful, like some kind of giant snow globe or a living Currier and Ives Christmas card print. We got off the drive at Montrose and turned right to go to Cricket Hill. The scene before was nothing short of amazing. It appears that we were not alone. There must have been at least 100 jokers there ahead of us. There were sleds and sliding saucers, of course. There were people on downhill skis, people on cross-country skis, toboggans, children building snowmen. There was one poor joker trying to ride a 10-speed bike down the hill. He was not doing very well. There was a grandmotherly lady there with one of her grandchildren who was covered from head to foot with snow. She would take a step or two and fall down. She had placed plastic bags over her shoes to protect them. But the bags offered no traction in this foot of snow. But the pièce de résistance of the event was a group of 4 young men, no strangers, as the Irish would say, to a glass in the hand, obviously quite drunk, who were here in the dead of winter carrying a large plastic blow-up swimming pool. They were all running from the top of the hill, chanting a kind of a ho, 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 and then all leaping together into the pool as they launched themselves down the hill. If I live to be 100, I shall never forget those jokers. Meanwhile, Ariel and Jackie dove into this mad scene and were having a great time sledding and sliding. After about an hour, they were both sufficiently chilled. We retired to the car to warm up and have our sandwiches and hot chocolate. As they warmed up, they agreed that they had had enough fun, so we returned home. Mission accomplished. In my reflecting on this story, I've come to think of it as having 2 possibilities. One is to think of it as the miracle on Montrose. The other is what I can only describe as Ariel's positive attitude and belief in herself and her planning. In either case, what could have been a fiasco of standing on a barren, snowless hill was saved by Ariel's positive thinking and/or intervention from above. Thank you.